Are we not looking at the camera? Pretend it's not there.
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to use any of the footage, so it'll just be the voice.
Right.
Probably, but we'll see. So welcome everyone to dinner here at the Briars. Something that we have a privilege of sharing and enjoying 3 times a day.
Charles, did you just feel that again? Sorry, I just had a chip as soon as you did it.
Hello everyone and welcome to dinner with the team. We're enjoying our fish and chips this afternoon, but whatever time you're joining us is perfect. We are going to be chatting a little bit about what is going on over the course of Holy Week and just about our daily lives. So thank you so much for joining us. This is hopefully the first of many podcasts that we're going to be putting out into the atmosphere, into your lives over the next few months. In the meantime, as is tradition with any Briars meal, we're going to begin by saying grace together. So, team, would any of you guys like to lead us in grace?
I will.
Oh, thank you, Luke. That was superbly quick.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear God, we thank you for all the food we're about to eat today. We ask you to bless all the food, and we pray the hands that made it as well. And we pray for everyone who goes without food today. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Luke. So I'm joined today by Lawley, James, Luke and Elise, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about our days and just a little bit of an experience about what we do when we're having food together. So does someone want to chat about what we've got for lunch today?
Yes, I will.
Thanks,
Hi,
Lawley.
this is Lawley's voice. We're having fish and chips today. Filming this on a Friday, so fish fingers and chips is a classic here. And I think it's something we all enjoy. Yeah.
It's true, yep. I've just taken a huge mouthful. But we're going to get used to that. So we've just done our last recording of Heaven's Kitchen.
Yes.
Sad times.
Today it was sad, yeah. That was from James and Elise led that. So was there any highlights from the show?
My memory, I think, coming back of quavers and tea. I just forgotten all about it, and I'm going to try it again. Dipping quavers in tea.
I've got some quavers and we can try that later.
Oh, nice one.
My highlight was definitely looking back at all the things that we've done in Heaven's Kitchen, especially the donut challenges, the jam donuts and the donut on a string, which I'm reigning champion of, I might add.
I thought James won the donut challenge.
Won the first one.
The first one,
Yeah.
the jam donut one.
But got disqualified from the second one.
What for?
Because it dropped off the string.
So you got disqualified for ill preparedness.
What?
It was a rule. Made the rules very clear at the start.
Don't hit the player, hit the game.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'd just like to point out that I would have won both had it not been for me absolutely messing up the first one and coughing it back up.
Oh, cool. So anyway, as I said, we're all eating. So that was today.
So this is a very serious podcast about Maundy Thursday.
Yeah, Jordan. So this podcast is going live on Maundy Thursday, and so we thought as a team we'd kind of chat a little bit about what Maundy Thursday is and means and does and what it is, as it's the first kind of part and day and celebration of the Easter Triduum, or the 3 days that we celebrate Easter for, which is Maundy Thursday, Good Friday and Holy Saturday. Easter Sunday isn't in the Triduum. Holy Saturday is the actual Easter celebration.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have the vigil mass on the Saturday night, right?
Which is Easter. That's the beginning of it. And then Easter Sunday is for like a very normal time of day, like a normal Sunday mass. Yeah. So Maundy Thursday is the first one. But you guys, you've been doing some research into what it is all about, haven't you? So does anyone want to share a little bit about what they found out?
Yeah, I will. I think Maundy Thursday's always had a special place in my heart. I think it's a nice kind of preparation. We know what's happening on Good Friday. I think it's a bit like Christmas. Well, actually, no, it's nothing like Christmas Eve, but like it's the day before something big's going to happen. And I think I remember at school we would sometimes be at school and we'd finish early on the Maundy Thursday, and that was always kind of cool. But it is the day where Jesus and his apostles celebrated the Last Supper, and it was like the Passover festival that they were celebrating. I read the 4 different gospel accounts the other day, and how they're different and how they're very similar. Like Matthew, Mark and Luke are very, very similar in their wording and what happens, and we go from Jesus telling the apostles how to prepare for the Passover, and then he breaks the news that someone's going to betray him during dinner, which kind of would have been a bit of like, put a bit of a downer on the group, because it was such a celebratory time, and they don't believe him. They're like, we'll never betray you. And Jesus kind of prophesies Peter's denial and what's going to happen over the next few days. And then they go to the Mount of Olives and go to the Garden of Gethsemane. Yeah. And they that kind of happens in all of those Gospels. But John's are slightly different. He doesn't go into kind of specifics about the Passover meal and the Last Supper that we hear at Mass. He talks more about Jesus telling them about the betrayal and the denial, and then talks about the feet washing.
I've got some fun facts about where they were sitting. There's lots of different things. I think maybe given some context of why they were having a meal was because it was the Passover celebration. Now, the Passover celebration is still celebrated today. It's still something that happens today in the Jewish community, and that is because it celebrates the Exodus, so the second book of the Bible, where Moses leads the people out of Egypt and out of slavery into the wilderness for 40 years. Now, God sends 10 plagues to the people of Egypt to try and convince the Pharaoh to let the Jewish people go. And the last straw, the final thing that does it, is the Passover of the angel of death. It's all pretty horrific stuff, but the angel kills the firstborn of anyone who hasn't marked their front doorposts with the blood of a lamb. So it's all a bit like sacrificial stuff. But the angel of death kills the Pharaoh's firstborn, and that then kicks off the whole Exodus, Moses and the people wandering in the wilderness. And so it's a celebration of that happening, the Passover festival. And so they were celebrating this as they would have done every year, and they were celebrating it in Jerusalem with the disciples, and in fact it would have been a big party. There would have been a lot of people there. There'd have been loads of different friends and family. It would have been like a almost like a Briar's disco, one would say. But they would be having this celebration, and the way that they would be seated and the way that it works is that generally the oldest person sits at the front of the it's almost like set out like a horseshoe. But the oldest person would be asked questions by the youngest person about why they celebrate and talk about the Passover celebration. But they reckon that the way that the disciples were laid out, it was in a horseshoe. For it to work in the way that we think it worked, John would have been on Jesus' right as the most important guest. Because that's what we think, that Jesus and John were like best friends, they hung out all the time, and they reckon John would have been on Jesus' right at the end of the horseshoe. On the other side must have been Judas, because they had to have been within touching reach in order for them to dip their hands in the bread, not in the bread, in the water at the same time. And Peter would have actually been on the complete other side at the bottom end of the horseshoe. So Peter would have had to have been at the complete other end of the horseshoe, because, as he says, it was his job to clean and wash the feet of the guests, and so Peter would have been, that was his responsibility and his role at the Passover festival, was to wash the guests' feet, and so therefore would have been at the lowest position on the table, which is the complete other side.
That's interesting, because I think Peter was the one when Jesus said, "I'm going to wash your feet." It makes sense, because that was kind of his role, and it was definitely not the most important person, which Jesus was in the room. And I think it's interesting that that's one of the last evenings he's going to spend with his closest friends, and that's what he kind of decides to do. And we still wash feet in Mass to this day. The priest often washes parishioners' feet. I don't know how it's working this year, maybe slightly different, but it's like a tradition.
Like a water pistol, I think, this year.
Or like a paddling pool outside. But yeah, I think it's an interesting tradition, one of the more kind of abstract things, I think, when we look at like Catholic traditions, but I think something that is really special and has a lot of meaning behind it as well.
Yeah, it puts the priest in that person of Christ. I think we so often forget that the priest is acting as Jesus in the Mass, and it's the Latin in persona Christi. He's in the person of Christ, and it's kind of a reminder of that. And I think that Pope Francis has been quite revolutionary in that he washed refugees' feet a couple of years ago. You could check out that video, it was like 2014 or 15. I think it was like his first Easter he did it, and I think it opens up that it shouldn't just be 12 people that we're really familiar with, but everyone, that we wash the feet of everyone. So, yeah, feet washing. There you go.
Interesting.
We've all just taken a mouthful at the same time. So the feet washing is quite a small bit of the Thursday story, I suppose, because then we go into the rest of the Last Supper and the conversation that would have been had. It would be amazing to be a fly on the wall and like experience and see what they were all talking about.
I wonder if like the mood completely shifts and like they were just having like normal conversations, and then suddenly Jesus kind of is starting to act a bit weird, and kind of, if you know that this is like the last time you're going to spend with these people, what do you choose to tell them? And like,
I think it's kind of interesting that Jesus kind of calls out Judas, not to his face, but he's actually angry at him. And you know, you think that someone had to betray Jesus for it to happen. You know, someone was kind of here to do that, and in this case it was Judas, but Jesus still has that human instinct of being angry at Judas, even though it was kind of what was meant to be, because that it just kind of reminds us that he just has that human instinct in him to get annoyed and get angry.
Because he felt the whole, everything he went through was painful, and he felt it, and it's something I think we can sometimes forget, because Jesus is one of the Trinity, that he felt pain like we did. He didn't want to die necessarily, but he did the Father's will, which I think is important to remember in this time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's the the end of the evening. What we do in Mass on Maundy Thursday is once everyone's received communion, we all move to another room. I don't know if you guys have done that or something similar, but Jesus gets moved into another space or place, and we've done it here at the Briars before, where we create like a garden for people to go into, and Jesus stays outside of the tabernacle in another safe place until Holy Saturday, basically. So yeah, it's really interesting that Jesus has that like human nature to him, and I think we can forget that, and I think this is a really like, it's almost the most human part of Jesus' ministry is when he dies, and that's of course what we're building up to here in the Maundy Thursday Mass.
I think the betrayal is also interesting because it was one of his closest friends. Like the 12 apostles were Jesus' best friends, and we know Judas Iscariot is this like villain kind of person, but he was there with Jesus through a lot of his ministry and was a friend to him at times and kind of played that part. And I think it's interesting that he was kind of chosen to betray him, and that was like the role that he was put in. Why wasn't it just, a lot of people didn't like Jesus in the time, a lot of them could have gone and handed him into the authorities, but why was it one of his closest friends, and the whole like kissing of the cheek and all of that kind of thing is an interesting part of the story.
Well, it's interesting because the kissing of the feet, not the kissing of the feet, the kissing on the cheek in the Garden of Gethsemane was because Jesus looked like a normal person. Yeah. He didn't look like, he wasn't like 6'5"
with a halo.
Yeah, with a halo.
Like social media didn't exist. Like it wasn't spread around that Jesus was this person.
Exactly, he would have looked like everyone else because of that 100% humanness. And so he, Judas, to define who Jesus was, had to go and kiss him on the cheek just to like prove that like this is the guy you want. And it just shows how little the crowd and the people knew what he looked like as well, considering he'd been teaching in the temple and the Pharisees and the Sadducees had all watched it happen and watched him preaching. They obviously didn't click what he looked like, so it's interesting. There you go. So that is Maundy Thursday. That's what we celebrate. That's what we will be. Well, we're looking forward to it. It'll be next Thursday for us. But maybe you've already experienced nights before, maybe you've never experienced it, but it is a wonderful celebration. And hopefully you've learned a little bit, as we've learned over the last sort of 15 minutes or so. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, today, and thank you for listening. And hopefully, as I said, this won't be the last time we get to do something like this. The team and myself, we've all enjoyed our lunch. It's been great fun. Just maybe you'll get to join us for a meal sometime soon. If you want to see what we get up to after lunch, we normally just chat about what we're doing for the rest of the afternoon, which is exciting, and then we'll crack on with that. But don't forget to check us out, NDCYS Live. Well, you already know, you can subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you all very soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.